So my story as a Christian begins at a young age, growing up and just being blessed to have two parents that really lived out loving Jesus. I don't recall a season of my life where there hasn't been something that knitted me close to God and the things that He said was true. Going all the way back to in high school where, had this really larger-than-life father, a wonderful dad who was a leader in the community, certainly a leader at home. And to watch him just slowly fade away before my eyes as he got sick with a disease that none of us could really figure out. To see my father grow in his peace and certainty and confidence in his decision to follow Christ brought me comfort, but honestly it confused me even more and in some ways made me even angrier. That how could you continue to fool my father as you take him closer to you? The doctors did everything they could. No one wanted my father to die, but he did. And it was hard for me to reconcile that there was a God that would want something like that to happen to someone like him, who was making a difference in the kingdom and making a difference in the church. Truth be told, there was a lot of anger. It was only after my own experiences of coming close to death and not knowing my next days would come where I began to realize really that sweet release of knowing that there's a moment where you're going to get to see this God who says these incredible things. I got in the military because I watched a whole lot of Chuck Norris movies when I was growing up. I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not. I was kind of an action-based guy. To see how far I would go for something other than myself and something bigger than me. And here I had on this ridgeline over here this incredible, very challenging endeavor called becoming a Navy SEAL, and I wanted to see if I could do that. Nobility, purpose, virtue, service, all these other things. In the military, we bet the farm and we bet our lives on the person next to us being that kind of person, and I needed that. We kind of live in this world where it sounds artistic and poetic and fluffy until you're bent behind a rock praying that that guy comes for you and that the guy just makes the rock a little bit bigger and you a little bit smaller in those moments. The thing that didn't go wrong, the thing that didn't hit you, the helicopter that didn't go down when it should have, the island in the middle of the ocean that no one knows is there so you could swim to it, just all these little things. It's as though sometimes God just bent the world to my insecurities to let him know he loved me a whole lot. Tactically, the most dangerous you are is after a victory. Because everyone thinks they've won, but if you know anything about combat, you know that that's when you're most vulnerable to a reattack. And so to come home from war and to think I'm not at war anymore was very dangerous. And so I needed to surround myself with people who understood that we were at war. And though the war's different, there's no bullets, there's no bombs, but there's temptation, there's alcohol, there's laziness, there's lust, there's materialism, there's careerism, there's all these other things that are as or more dangerous than a bullet. And so a lot of it has to do with who you're surrounded by. So for me, plugging into community at Watermark and to be living a life around people who remind you that you need them, even when you don't think you do, is really, really important. And I think there's two kinds of men, and both of them are insecure. One just acknowledges it and the other one doesn't. But I'm an insecure guy. I'm a guy that misses his daddy a whole lot. And when you don't get to hear your dad say he's proud of you, you try to make sure 100,000 people do. And then when they do, and it still doesn't do it, you're insecure. And one of the things I learned to do is to find my identity and find who I was, my creator, which is Christ. When my daughter's born, and I wasn't there, and I'm not gonna see her for another 7 months, if I ever see her anyway, because I knew where I was, and I didn't know if I'd ever come home and see this girl, I had to believe that God was gonna do what he said he was gonna do, that he had plans for me to prosper and not to harm me. And even if he brought me home before I got to meet her, she would be okay without me. As horrifying and scary as that was for me, I just believed it was. One of the things I identified with very early when I was in the Navy was this saying, hold fast and stay true. And it's not unique to the United States Navy, it's actually a nautical phrase. And what it meant was, when the storms come, because the storms come, the men on the decks would look at each other and yell, hold fast, hold fast, hold fast. And what they were telling each other to do was grab the things that aren't gonna fail, the weathered things, the scarred things, the tired things that have just held, and hang on. And you're either gonna let the wind steer us, the waves steer us, the storm steer us, or you're gonna stay true. And we need you to stay true. So as a young freshman who had buried my father and was trying to find just a phrase that would anchor me down to who I said I was and when it got really bad, and that hold fast, just stay true stuck. And I used to write it on my knuckles, HOLD, FAST, STAYTRUE. There's one thing that's never failed. It's one thing that doesn't fail. And the one thing that's always true, it's God, and it's his words in the Bible. This world's trying to sell you a whole lot of easy stuff. You're gonna hold fast to that? Look how quickly that stuff washes away. But Christ doesn't sell a thing. He just shows you, hey, I last. You grab onto me. And as a young man, I just started making that bet. Let me tell you what, when the hard times come, someone's gonna try to sell you something. You know what, world? You can keep what you're selling. I'm gonna hold fast, stay true.